Hi, it's me Corey and welcome to my channel. We are doing another What I Eat in a Week meal prep for one session on this video, and I'm excited to show you what I had this week. It was real tasty. So on the menu was my two meals were vegan steak and potatoes with asparagus, and then I made some curry quinoa with what I'm calling soy celery tofu. What inspired that dish was celery that was about to go bad and some soy sauce that I just wanted to use up. And then for my snack, I had smoothies this week. So I'm actually going to start with my smoothies because I have another video on them, and I didn't do anything that's too different on this one. So I just started with a frozen bag of strawberries, a bag of spinach, and 5 bananas. And I put 1 banana per Ziploc bag. There are 5 bags. A handful of strawberries. I just divided that frozen bag amongst the 5. A big old handful of spinach in each bag. I put those 5 bags in the freezer, and then when I went to blend it, I added a cup of water and a tablespoon of almond butter. Great snack, super easy, and strawberry banana is just like my favorite smoothie, so it's kind of my go-to. If fresh strawberries are on sale, I'll go for those, but they weren't this week, so I went with the frozen, and it divided amongst 5 bags pretty nicely. Okay, I'm going to start with the steak, potatoes, and asparagus. So I make my vegan steak out of seitan. I will have the recipe actually written out below so that you can just easily find it instead of clicking on a bunch of different links. The heart of it is vital wheat gluten and veggie stock. But for my seasonings, I put in garlic powder, basil, oregano, thyme, mustard, celery salt, onion powder, paprika, salt, and pepper. So that is what is in this bowl, as well as nutritional yeast, and then the 1.5 cups of vital wheat gluten. So the recipe below will be the full recipe, and that's usually what I'll make like around the holidays or if I'm cooking for like a party or something. But if I'm just cooking for myself for 1 week, I actually half the vital wheat gluten and the veggie stock. So instead of 3 cups, I make it 1.5 cups. But I keep the seasonings the same because the first time I made this, it was a little bland and I did the whole 3 cups. So I keep the seasonings the same as if it were 3 cups. For the wet ingredients, I start with veggie stock, tomato paste, apple cider vinegar, and soy sauce. That's what's in that bowl. And then you give it a good whisk, and you add that to your dry batter. Don't be like me, mix your seasonings before you add your batter, but it ended up working out fine for me. But you can whisk it for a minute, but the goal is for it to eventually form into a like meatier loaf. So then you need to get in with your hands and just make sure it's all incorporated and mixed together. You're going to eventually roll it into a log. You'll see it should be wet. You should be able to squish it and like some of the stock will come out. It should be very squishy, but it should be one solid block. And then to cook it, you need to wrap it very tightly in foil. So that's just me kind of like tucking it under itself so that it's all nice and wrapped in there, because basically what you're doing in the oven is steaming it for 45 minutes on 350. So for the asparagus, I just cut about 1 inch of the ends off, and then I like my asparagus very simple, so I blanch it. I pour boiling hot water over the asparagus and make sure they are completely submerged for about 2 minutes, and then I dump that water out and add a tray of ice cubes to get it to stop cooking. And that is all I do to my asparagus. I like the crunch of asparagus. I like how fresh it tastes, so like I keep it very simple. When I was heating up my seitan and my potatoes in the oven later in the week, I would just once my stuff was done, I would turn the oven off and pop my serving of asparagus in there just for like a minute or so until it was warmed through but not cooked. Obviously there are a bunch of different ways you can cook asparagus, so cook it to your preferences. I kind of like to leave it alone as much as possible. So my potatoes were in the oven roasting for about 30 minutes at this point when I diced up 3 cloves of garlic and 1 green bell pepper. I used a whole bag of baby red potatoes from Walmart, cut them in half, and placed them skin side down onto some foil with olive oil, salt, pepper, and thyme. So when I took them out after 30 minutes, I just flipped them all over onto their backs before I added my green pepper and my garlic, and I popped it back into the oven for another 30 minutes or so. Okay, you can see my seitan has been going in there as well. I gave it a poke, because when it pops back at you, that's when you know it's done. Or supposedly, I will say, I forgot my vegetable oil in this recipe. I did not expect this to be the outcome. You can see me kind of pushing on it like, ooh, this is weird. But yeah, usually when it cooks all the way through, you can slice it kind of like gyros or Philly cheesesteaks, but because this was so thick, you couldn't really do that. But I do like that in this shot you can see that it does get pulley and stretchy. If you like meat, I just had to roast it to get it actually like cooked all the way through again. So this is what I had. I tried to show you a texture shot. It's kind of hard to see, so I'll have to do this again for you guys so you can see me like kind of shave it right off of the log and make like slivers for gyros or Philly cheesesteak sandwiches. I've never cooked it like this before, but it is kind of interesting. It was good. Sorry, it was good. It's kind of interesting because I feel like I can make like fajitas, and like what I'm eating for my snack this week is actually steak and egg quesadillas. So it's kind of like that thicker, I don't know steak, so like I don't know what to call it, but it's just like thicker, and you can add different spices to this. Like I'm now thinking like I could add like a taco pack or something and have like steak fajitas. I'm a huge fan of this recipe. I really like it as a meat substitute, and I think leaving out that vegetable stock or whatever else I did, I feel like I did everything else the same way. I didn't expect leaving out vegetable oil to have that much of an impact, but leaving it out has made me think about different ways I could utilize this. So next time I cook it, I will still leave it in, but yeah, sometimes mistakes can turn into cool little things. Okay, so what you see in here is some quinoa. It was probably, what was it? Oh, it was like 3/4 of a cup of quinoa. It was just the last bit I had, which is what inspired this meal. Boiling in some vegetable stock. Once that was cooked, I added this mixture to it. I will link the recipe for this, or the video for this up above and in the description box. But that was from my crispy curry wonton week, where I made tofu nuggets, crispy curry wontons, cabbage stir fry, I can't remember what else. But yeah, that's from that week, and I made a bunch of wonton fillings, so I just froze that last little bit of it and said I would come back to it later. It's later, so I added that bag, which was basically carrots, cabbage, mushrooms, and butternut squash with curry powder, to my quinoa with some soy sauce, probably like 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, and gave it a mix. And that was really all I did for the curry quinoa portion of this. For my celery soy tofu, I diced up garlic and carrots. I did dice up my celery as well, but I didn't put that in my marinade. I diced up my carrots and my garlic for a marinade and set my celery aside. And then in that bowl, in that black bowl, was half a cup of soy sauce, half a cup of water, so equal parts soy sauce and water, and then I just added my carrots and my garlic to the mixture. I also added some ground ginger. I really meant to add some fresh ginger, but it must have fallen out of my cart. I remember putting it in my cart at the store, but I do not remember checking it out, so I'm pretty sure it just fell out of my cart. So I just added ground ginger. I would have preferred fresh ginger for this though. And then I added about a teaspoon of sesame oil to that mixture as well. For my tofu, I did press it. So it's just wrapped in a couple of paper towels, and you can sit something heavy on it as well to squeeze some of that excess water out of it for a minute. And then I sliced it down the middle and then into columns before I flipped it and diced it into cubes. And then I just went ahead and added that into the marinade as well. That bowl wasn't big enough, so I needed to transfer it into a different bowl to give it a mix. At this point, I also added some cracked black pepper to it, and then I just let it sit for a couple of hours until I was ready for dinner. I think you could also get away with just letting this sit for like 30 minutes. But I put it in a plastic bag to add some cornstarch to it, about 2 tablespoons, and give it a mix. It's hard to do with one hand, so I'm just like throwing it around. But I added it to a hot pan, And then once it started to brown, I added my celery and gave it a mix. And then I added the rest of the marinade in 3 parts. So little by little, I added in that marinade. As the water evaporated, I added more and more. And this is what I was left with. This was very, very good, very juicy, but still crispy tofu. Huge fan. Yeah, I went ahead and added a serving of my tofu to my quinoa, my curry quinoa, and then that was the last meal for this week. Very simple, very tasty, very flavorful, and it was just inspired from things that I had left over in my kitchen. So shop in your fridge first, shop in your freezer first, shop in your pantry first, because that's where you are going to find inspiration for your next meals. And that's also where and how you can save money, because you're using up stuff instead of going out and buying a whole bunch of stuff that you probably don't need to buy. That's it, y'all. That's all I have for this week. I think both of these meals were very simple, and obviously the snack was also super simple. Very filling. I love those, I called it a milkshake. I love those smoothies because they're thick like milkshakes. That almond butter like sets it off. As always, thank you for watching. Please give this a big thumbs up. It does help me a ton. Be sure to subscribe. If you have someone you can share this with, I would love that as well. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.